Good evening, dear friends. So any issues that you wish to be the subject of our discourse tonight? Any questions? The first question is about transformation. What is transformation? How it is going to come about? And the question was put in the context of what baha'u'llah has said, that it is the time for a new race of humanity to come to be. What's the nature of humanity from here on, and how we are going to transform from the way that we are to this new way. So that's one question that we will talk about tonight. Any others? So the follow-up to the question of transformation is that in order to transform, we have to develop new habits. So what are the habits that we have to learn, new habits, and how to go about to have those habits as a part of our daily life? I think these are the two questions that are very, could take the whole time to talk about, but there's one more we add to it, and then
art of listening.
The art of listening. All right. From a Baha'i perspective, the relationship between God and humanity is continuous, is ever present. God has created us. God has provided everything that we need in order to live a fully transformative and excellent life. He has given the necessary physical needs that we have for living. He has provided us with a mind and intellectual capacity to understand, to discover, to create, which makes life rich and fantastic. And God also, from time to time, when humanity no longer knows what to do, sends an emissary to mankind to tell us what to do, where to go, how to live, what are the necessities of this time and this age in human life. And that's why we have these figures in history, such as Jesus Christ, or Moses, or Abraham, or Buddha, or Krishna, or Muhammad, or baha'u'llah. These are the ones that have come to this world at different times and in different parts of the world. And they have brought necessary guidance to humanity when it was necessary. And it's interesting that we live right now in the month of April. And the month of April is a very, very precious month in the Baha'i calendar. Because on 21st of April, in 1863, baha'u'llah, who was an exile and a prisoner in city of Baghdad, proclaimed to the world that he has come with a new message from God to humanity. And he said that this is not from me. I am a human being like everyone else. But I have been given this mandate to announce to humanity that a new spiritual age has started. Jesus Christ did the same thing. All these messengers of God, which we call them by different names, Son of God, or Representative God, or Prophet of God, all of these, they, on the one hand, they are human beings like us, but on the other hand, they are totally, completely different from us. And that's why they have such an impact on human life and on human history. Because all history of humanity has been shaped by the teachings of these messengers that have come, these prophets that have come, these representatives that have come, all of them. In the Baha'i language, we call them the manifestations of God. They come to manifest qualities that God wants to give to humanity. Okay, so Baha'u'llah on 21st of March, April, in 1863, in the city of Baghdad, while he was ordered to be further exiled to Constantinople and then later, eventually to Akka, which is now a part of Israel in Holy Land. Baha'u'llah on that day said that I have come to give you the message of God to humanity for this age. And the first message is that the age of fighting, of conflict, of religious crusade, of jihad, of all of this is over. No longer anyone is allowed in the name of God and religion to commit acts of violence against anyone. Baha'u'llah said this is the age to develop our consciousness, and this is what you're talking about, our consciousness that humanity is one. Because humanity always have been thinking in dichotomies, us and them. And us, we are good, and them are not so good, okay? This has been the way that humanity has been thinking, us and them. Baha'u'llah said this is the age of oneness. This is the age that peoples of the world have to learn that they are one and they are unique at the same time. Every human being is unique. Every race of humanity is unique. Every group is unique. Every culture is unique. But these unique people, this is the time to have come for them to become united. And this is the fundamental task of humanity from here on. To learn the ways of peace, of unity, of harmony. This was the first teaching of Baha'u'llah for humanity. And when you read the writings of Baha'u'llah, the scriptures of the Baha'i faith, which is more than just one book, is just more than a Bible and the Quran. Baha'u'llah wrote about 100 volumes during his ministry. So there is because this is the age of knowledge, so humanity had to be given much more to learn how to live the ways of peace, because until now we have been living the ways of conflict and disunity, and still we are living the ways of conflict and disunity. And Baha'u'llah said this is the time to transform. So how do we transform? Okay? We human beings see ourselves, learn to see ourselves and our world through our experiences in the family that we are born, in the environment that we are, the education that we receive, the guidance that we have, and the creative capacities that each of us have. Through these processes, every one of us develop a way of looking at life. Okay? We have a prism, like we have a glasses on, okay? And we see the world and everything that there is in through the experiences of our life. And this is called worldview. Every one of us has a worldview, okay? And there are fundamentally 4 parts to our worldview. 1, our view of reality. We all have an idea about what is reality. We usually are not conscious of it. You see, right now, as I started talking about worldview, I don't think any of you have been thinking, what is my worldview? Okay? You haven't. But now you have to think. You have to ask yourself, what is my worldview? Okay? What is my view of reality? Now, most people have a dichotomous view of reality. In other words, they think there are 2 realities in this world, good and evil, us and them, science and religion, men and women, black and white, this race and that race, this religion and that religion, this citizenship and that citizenship, foreigners and citizens. People think in dichotomies. This is the predominant view of people about reality. While in fact, reality is one. Reality cannot be multiple, okay? Truth is one. So the first component of our worldview is our view of reality. And we have to ask ourselves, what is my view of reality? Have I thought about it? And what's its nature? And how can I modify it? How can I change that? That's the first. Second component of worldview is our view of human nature, which is connected to our view of reality. We all have some idea about human nature. Some people think human nature fundamentally is bad. Some feel that human nature is incomplete. We have to be ashamed of it. Some feel guilty about it. The original sin notion. You see? In science, materialistic science that we have, they think that human reality is fundamentally conflicted and problematic.
And what?
And problematic, full of problems. Freud said that human reality is composed of id and ego and superego, and the id and superego fighting with each other, and ego trying to create peace but not very successful. You know, so the whole notion of what is human nature is a profoundly important, because what we think we are, we become that thing. So, for example, when in modern capitalism they say human nature is fundamentally greedy, so what's the outcome of it? Is that the capitalistic practice becomes a greedy practice. Okay? When, for example, the prophets of modern economy, they say human beings are fundamentally selfish, we become selfish. When they say that human beings are by nature violent, we become violent. So what is our view of human nature is fundamental. Most people don't think about it. But we have to think about it. If we want to transform, we have to begin to ask ourselves, what is my view of human nature? Because when you reflect on your view of reality, and when you reflect on the view of human nature, then you can decide about the third component of worldview. The first component, our view of reality. Second component, our view of human nature. The third component is our view of the purpose of life. What is the fundamental purpose of life? Is it to live? Just to be alive?
That was in my head.
Is it to have fun?
Why not?
Live for the moment and that's it?
Evolve.
Is to evolve, okay. Evolve towards what?
Something higher.
Is something higher? Where? What? You know? What is the fundamental purpose of life?
Know God and worship Him.
Yeah, well, but we will come to that. We will come to that. What is the purpose of life?
Reach your goals, maybe? Reach your goals.
Yeah, reach your goals, but what goals?
Carry forward and ever
Yeah.
advancing civilization.
So these are fundamental questions about what is the fundamental purpose of life. And the fourth component of worldview is what we think are the main laws of human relationships. How human relationships should take place. What is the most fundamental aspects of human relationships? These four things, our view of reality, our view of human nature, our view of the purpose of life, and our view of human relationships together make up our world view. Okay? And everything that we do, everything that we feel, and everything that we think is shaped by our worldview. And because usually worldview is subconscious or unconscious, we just go around and act the way that we do, having no clue why we are acting the way that we are.
I just
Okay.
hadn't thought about the third one.
Yes.
Our purpose in life. To grow closer to God.
Yes, I'm going to discuss it.
Okay.
I'm going to discuss it, what is, because getting close to God is very good idea, but how? Yeah, how am I going to go close to God? Where is God? Okay, you know. So that is a fundamental question, okay? So when you think about worldviews, you will see that everybody, every human being has a worldview, okay? And there are billions of people in this world. And all of them have unique worldviews. But if you are going to have 5 or 10 billion worldviews, you don't get anywhere, okay? So we have to see whether we can make a sense of worldviews. And when we look at the worldviews, we will be able to see that there are basically 3 major categories of worldview. Okay, 3 major categories of worldview that have been operating in this world since the dawn of history and consciousness. The first worldview, I call it survival-based worldview. A worldview based on the issue of survival. This world is a dangerous world, is a difficult world. This life is difficult. This body of humanity is really have a lot to be, improved upon. Okay, we get sick, we have pain, we get hungry, we have to breathe. You just name it. Okay, so one of the fundamental tasks that every human being faces from the very beginning of life is to survive. How to survive? So majority of the people of the world live their lives with the worldview how to survive.
Especially if you're a musician.
That's right. That's right. Look at the world right now, our world today. Look how desperate people are. Look at everything. You look at the governments, what they are talking about. Security, safety of all people. This is about survival, right? About economy, feeding our people, making our lives easier and better. So majority of people of the world have been focused on survival, to stay alive. And most of their time and energy and capacities goes that way. Okay? That's the most common worldview in the world is the survival-based worldview. In recent centuries, last 2-3 centuries, a new worldview has come very profoundly, and that is what I call, and by the way, survival-based worldview in a developmental sense is level of childhood. Children need help to survive, right? And when humanity, masses of people, constantly needing help to survive, they are functioning in their mindset at that level. As economy of the world got better, as the age of machines came about, as people began to make more money and more ability to live and medicine and health improved and so forth, humanity went to the next phase. And the next phase after childhood is adolescence. And in adolescence, the worldview changes. Think of yourself when you were child and you became an adolescent. In adolescence, the worldview changes. The most fundamental task of adolescence is what?
Finding out.
To establish your identity, who you are. In adolescence, we want to find out who we are and to establish that we are the greatest, the bestest, the smartest, the everythingest. That's what we want to do because we are in adolescent age, And what are some of the characteristics of the adolescent worldview? Competition, right? Winning, getting ahead, aggression, violence, fighting. These are all characteristics of an adolescent age. This is an adolescent mindset, identity-based worldview. These two worldviews, survival-based and identity-based worldviews, have been the dominant worldviews of humanity until now. Practically all the nations of the world and most of the peoples of the world live according to one or both of these worldviews. Countries that are poor and miserable, they are in survival mode. Countries that are in better situation are in adolescent, identity-based, competitive world. You see, these are the main worldviews of humanity. Baha'u'llah came and said we have to change our worldview. We have to develop a new worldview. Okay? A new worldview that is appropriate to an adult, mature humanity. Not a child humanity, not adolescent. This is the coming of age of humanity. We have to become mature. We have to grow up, evolving towards that level, next level of enlightenment and maturation of humanity. So the worldview that when you study the Baha'i writings to see what is the worldview defined in the Baha'i writings, you see, I call it the unity-based worldview. It's a new kind of worldview. We have to develop a new way of looking at reality. Reality is one. At human nature, Baha'u'llah said human nature is fundamentally noble. We are noble beings. But our nobility is in a state of potentiality. We have to actualize it. We have to help our nobility to evolve, to blossom. Okay? We have to make sure that we don't do anything that debases us and brings our nobility down. Because we are fundamentally created noble. Okay? And Baha'u'llah said that the purpose of life is to create peace. Baha'u'llah said, I have come to this world to teach humanity how to create peace. And then he describes how to create peace. And when we, in the Baha'i prayers that we say we have been created to know God, meaning to know the message of God for humanity, and the message of God for humanity is message of unity and oneness of humanity. And to worship God means to put that message into action, which means that we become unifiers and peacemakers. That's what we have to do. That's how we have to devote ourselves and our lives and our thoughts and our activities to that. Because when humanity becomes united, the survival of everybody is assured, okay? And the identity of everybody is safeguarded. So you don't need to go to fighting and proving yourself and spending all of your life to get your livelihood, daily bread and this and that. You create a different world. We live right now in a disunited world. So consequently, we spend equal amount of money right now on taking care of pets and what is needed to feed all hungry people in the world. Okay? That's the world we live. There was a statistics that was fascinating, okay? There were two statistics I saw recently, they were fascinating. One was this, that the amount of money that the rich people spent on the pets, on their pets, that money would pay to feed all peoples of the world, that no one would be hungry. Okay? Another statistic I saw was fascinating, was that now the amount of expenditure and cost to humanity for people who are undernourished and people who are overnourished is equal. Wow, isn't that something? This is the kind of world we live. It's not that we don't have enough to feed everybody. It's that some people don't have enough to eat, some people eat too much. Yeah. That's what's happening. Okay? So transformation would take place when we become aware, we become conscious that we are all members of one family of humanity. When we become aware of that, we live differently. We think differently. Our scientists don't use their precious knowledge in making new ways of making guns and chemical things that kill people. Our scientists don't do that. They do something else. They do things that how to create a peaceful world. It would be a totally different world. So the process of transformation of humanity is the process of transformation of our individual and collective worldviews. We have to move away from the survival-based and identity-based worldviews to unity-based worldview. When we do that, we create what humanity always had wished for, heaven on earth. That's what we do. You know, it reminds me of a story. May have told you here before, but the story is this. This is a real story. The person died and went to next world. They came and said, welcome. said, thank you. He said, are you tired? He said, no, it was fast. The transition from that world to this world was fast. I'm good shape, thank you. They said, do you want to have a tour of this world? He said, yeah, that would be nice. He said, you want to see heaven first or hell? And he thought to himself and said, well, I'm going to be in heaven, so I better go and see the hell and get the hell over with it. So he said, yeah, I like to see hell. So they went, and there was this iron gate, and the neon sign said, hell, hell, hell. And they knocked at the doors, and finally somebody opened the door, and they went in. And it was magnificent. It was the most beautiful sight he had seen in his life. The trees were verdant, the flowers were everywhere, the birds were singing, the brooks of water everywhere. It was just magnificent. The temperature wasn't burning. It was 22 degrees. And, it was really, really incredible place. And it was lunchtime. And they had this banquet of food. The best of the foods of all cultures, Japanese, Chinese, Persian, hot dog from United States. They were all there. Okay, French food, you name it. And then there were the inmates of hell, and they looked hellish. They looked emaciated, hungry, angry, full of frustration, banging to each other. Everybody trying to come and sit down to eat, and they finally sat around. And they started eating, and he noticed that they all had on their hands a spoon, a big spoon, kind of taped, that they would get to the food, but they couldn't put it in their mouth. They take the mouth, it comes to their ear, to their eyes, to their head, but they couldn't put it to their mouth. So in the midst of plenty, they were hungry. He said, okay, I've seen enough. So they went to heaven. And there was a door identical to hell. And said, heaven, heaven, heaven. And they opened and went in. And it was identical to hell. It's all the same. The food was the same. The banquet was the same. But the people of heaven, they look good. They look heavenly. They look nice. Everybody's saying, how are you? How is it? Please. No, you go first. No, you go first. Everybody helping each other. They sat around to eat, and they had the same forks taped around their hands. And this time, each person fed the other person. Okay? We have everything to create heaven on earth. But we have to feed each other. I think this covered the questions we had tonight.
Can I ask you a question about what you were just talking
Yes,
about?
please.
Did baha'u'llah teach humanity how to have heaven on earth, or did he prophesy that that would occur?
No.
Do you understand?
No,
what
he has taught step by step what to do to create it.
But good, I understand that. But did he also prophesy that that would happen?
Well, he said,
Was he a prophet?
well, of course he was a prophet, Baha'u'llah was a prophet. Baha'u'llah, according to the teachings of the Baha'i faith, is the return of Jesus Christ.
Ah, interesting.
Okay? All religions of the world have prophesied that at the end of time, God would come to earth and bring humanity together. The Buddhists are waiting for the coming of the fifth Buddha. The Jews are waiting for the coming of Messiah, the kingdom of God. The Christians are waiting for the second coming of Christ, return of Christ in the glory of Father. Okay. The Muslims, there are two groups of Muslims, the Shias and sect, Sunnis. The Sunnis are waiting for the return of Christ. Okay, the Muslims are waiting for the return of Christ. Okay. So all of them have been waiting for return of a universal prophet of God that would bring humanity together and create kingdom of God on earth. Baha'u'llah is that figure. The claim of Baha'u'llah is immense of who he is. And when, it's not an ordinary person. It's the same way that Jesus Christ was an ordinary person, or Muhammad wasn't ordinary, or Buddha wasn't. Baha'u'llah is the extraordinary. And is extraordinary especially relevant to this age, because this is the age of the whole humanity. Is not any longer this group of people and that group of people and that group. The earth is one country now. And we are all citizens of this one country. And Baha'u'llah is the messenger of God to humanity, for all religions, for all languages and cultures and everything at this stage. And he has therefore come not only prophesying, but teaching how humanity, if we live according to those teachings, we would actually create that promised land that we have been waiting for. That answer your question?
Oh yes, very much. Thank you. This what's going on in my head is this: the skeptic could say, since you said he talked about this in 1863 already, that there's no law. Humanity had to become non-violent. No more.
Yeah.
No more wars,
That's right.
conflict, and
That's right.
violence in the name of God. Well, it seems to have accelerated since then.
Of course, because you see, there are only two ways that people change their worldview. Okay? There are only two ways. And one of those two ways is the most common way that people change their worldview. One way that people change worldview, and the most common way, is when our worldview no longer works. And we come to our knees. When we repeat the same mistakes over and over and over and over, and we create First World War and Second World War and the awful war that we have right now, and finally communism doesn't work, and capitalism doesn't work, and Marxism doesn't work, and adversarial democracy doesn't work, and none of them works, and environment going to the dogs, and everything. Finally, we say we better change our way of life. Humanity has taken that route. Baha'u'llah said, the other way of changing your worldview is to become aware of a new worldview and say, of course we can live that way. That transformation is difficult. Why is difficult? Because humanity right now is either in a desperate situation, majority of people, so they don't believe these things. They say these are utopia. They say that doesn't happen. That couldn't be. I don't have bread for tonight, so how could it? Or majority of people are in the age of adolescence, and adolescents are not going to listen to anyone. Okay, the adolescents and so on. No, I know better than God. I know better. So they don't listen, and that's what has happened. Adolescent humanity has not listened. So because we haven't listened to the message of God for this age since 1863, we have gone the difficult route. But we don't have a choice. Eventually, we have to change. We either change kicking and crying and saying no, 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 which is what we are doing, or we say, let's see how we can change, which is the process of transformation. This is what Baha'i is trying to do. Baha'i is trying to create a model, universal, global community of people of all races, of all backgrounds, of all classes, of all that live together in harmony, of peace, in relationship, with happiness, with joy, to show that yes, it is possible to do it.
It might get a little boring after.
No, it would be extremely creative. It would be more than creative, because when you stop wasting your creative capacities on conflict, then that creative capacity would open the new doors that we even cannot imagine it right now.
She was just sharing her worldview.
Yes. Yeah.
I didn't really mean that.
I always think of like Star Trek and stuff, like things that we don't even think about, like the money that and the energy that we could be spending time on finding new things in life, or like it's just like another way of looking at it.
It's a totally new world. You create a totally new world.
In that we are ruled by our governments. And this is to me the tremendous frustration of how to create any sort of change. Where does it begin? And I did mention this to Nushi the other day, and she was saying that the various levels of the Baha'i community.
Yes.
And then there is the administrative
Yes, right.
section at the top, and they are doing their best to change. But what can little we do?
Well, you see, change takes place at two levels.
Yeah. Okay.
One, at the individual level.
Yeah.
If every one of us try to live the ways of unity and peace, okay, we change ourselves and we impact our families. And our families, we think that we are odd or we are good, doesn't matter, but we impact them. We impact our friends. It becomes a grassroots movement.
Okay. That's right.
Now, grassroots movements, when they reach to certain level of size and force, usually 8-10% of population, the whole population begins to change. Okay? And this is for example, 15 years ago, if I had come here to this room with a cigarette in my mouth, nobody would have said anything. I would have a ashtray and everybody, and somebody would come and offer me a cigar and cigarette, and that would be, and all of us sitting around and smoking, and you know, making sure we get cancer and, you know, you know, and helping each other. That's what, you know, 15, 20 years ago, that would be the case.
Yeah, yeah.
It changed. Now, if I do that, come down here, I wouldn't be allowed. It's impossible. Yes. Do you see how change can take place? You know, is a new awareness.
Yeah, yeah.
When we become aware, a certain change has to be made. Then the very force of awareness create transformation.
Thank you. Yeah,
You see, the force of awareness, the knowledge, because when you know something, you cannot not know it. Okay? That's it. And that works and that changes. That brings about change. And the collective becomes responsive to the grassroots. Because you see as the world becoming more democratic, leadership is only acceptable when it's legitimate, right? And legitimacy of leadership is based on its moral quality, whether morally, ethically, it is right or not. When a society begins to say that smoking is not right, and a leader said, no, everybody should smoke, that conflict that would result in removal of that leadership. You see? Yeah, leadership is dependent upon the power of masses, of humanity, because power belongs to individuals. We are the ones that can change. And when we change, the very act of changing on our part changes the leadership process. Yes.
We see a little of that with the gun incidents.
Yeah.
In
That's right.
politics.
That's right.
Because
That's
the kids now went forward and everybody, politicians.
That's right. Well, Gandhi said that be change that you want to be,
Yeah, he did.
being about. So that's the process. Yeah.
Is there time for art of listening?
Art of listening? Well, you have been very good. You have listened extremely well. Yeah, there is nothing to say about that. No, art of listening is two-way process. One is the desire for the listener to learn something. And the other one is the capacity of the one that speaks to be sensitive to the need of the audience, of the listener. The two have to come in harmony with each other. Okay? And that's very difficult, because when you look at a group of people, they have different areas of interest. So when you talk, not everybody can listen to you, you know. That's the reason I have been talking so loud, forcing it upon you, you know. But you know, we will talk about listening some other time, some length. But so just beginning of it, yeah.
Thank you.
Habit develops as a result of repetition.
Good repetition, good start, good habit.
Any habit. If you want to develop a habit, you have to repeat it. Okay? If you don't repeat the habit, you don't have a habit. So that's the reason, for example, in Baha'i writings, you have the duty of saying a prayer, a specific prayers every day, so that it becomes a habit. The baha'u'llah calls upon us to read the writings and say prayers every morning and every eve. Why? Because this repetition becomes a habit. Baha'u'llah says, bring yourself to account every day, right? Bringing yourself account every day means to look at your worldview and what you did that day. Were you an agent of unity? Were you an agent of harmony? Were you working towards peace? And by the way, what is the force of unity? Is love. Were you engaged in act of loving? These are the kind of questioning that you do. So development of a habit is dependent about conscious process of revisiting the fundamental issues, and here we're talking about transformation, the fundamental requirements of transformation on a regular basis, so that we don't become neglectful. Because otherwise, this world is so conducive to getting busy with it and forgetting everything else. You know, we tend to become busy with important and less important. Abdu'l-baha says, in all aspects of life, we have to be ready to sacrifice the more important and important for the most important. We always have to be conscious of the most important. And that process develops a habit. What is, you know?
Do people need religion in order to change
Yes.
and grow?
Yeah, that's easy question. The question is, do people need religion in order to change? And the answer is yes. Okay? Because religion is not a set of commandments imposed on people. Religion is the description of the laws of life and existence. Religion actually describes the fundamental laws of existence and relationships, okay? Essential relationships emanating from realities of things. That's what religion is. So religion in its fundamental essence is scientific. It's a scientific process of looking at the spiritual realities of this life and laws of this life. And therefore, if you violate the law of life, or if you don't know the law, the fundamental laws of life, you wouldn't be able to establish peace. That's the reason that in spite of enormous effort by so many good, highly intelligent, highly capable peoples of the world, the conditions of the world is getting worse every day.
Yeah.
Because human capacity goes so far. Revelation opens the panorama for the next 1,000 years. And unless you are on the pathway of that panorama, doesn't matter how intelligent you are and how capable you are and how profound you are not going to get anywhere. And that's why, in spite of the best efforts, situation has got worse.
Are you saying religion is important or?
Essential.
Necessary.
It's impossible for the world to live without. We have misunderstood religion in the past because we have understood religions in the context of survival-based worldview and identity-based worldview. So we have made religion We have distorted religion and may have made it the cause of conflict and disunity and disharmony and ignorance among masses. That's what we have done because we didn't know what to do with it. Okay? But religion now is renewed. Baha'u'llah has renewed religion. And this renewed religion for humanity is provides the blueprint, provides the guideline, essential guideline for how humanity can go from here for centuries to come. And if we ignore it, we don't get there. We would go into the vicious cycle that we are right now. Religion brings the tangible and not tangible elements of reality to the surface and to our attention and to bring them together. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yes, of course.